This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. I want to begin this half hour in the Middle East. Israel is condemning a UN resolution that accuses Israel of crimes against humanity. As Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem, the report's critics claim the UN failed to address the crimes of Hamas on October 7th.
The UN Human Rights Council report alleges Israel systematically destroyed women's healthcare facilities during the war against Hamas in Gaza and uses sexual violence as a war strategy.
Sexual and gender-based violence is increasingly used as a method of war by Israel to destabilise, dominate, oppress and destroy the Palestinian people. The Commission documented a pattern of sexual violence, including cases of rape and other forms of sexual violence, torture and other inhumane acts that amount to war crimes and crimes against humanity.
We've seen an unbelievable blood label.
Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar blasted the report.
The so-called Commission of Inquiry of the Human Rights Council of the United Nations published one of the worst blood labels the world has ever seen, and we had seen many. It accuses the victims of the crimes committed against them. Hamas is the organization that has committed horrific sexual crimes against Israelis on October 7. It is indeed a sick publication that only an anti-Semitic organization could produce.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, some women's groups, and Israel's mission to the UN rejected the report as unfounded and anti-Semitic. On X, U.S. Ambassador-designate to the UN, Elise Stefanik, said the report ignores October 7th. The so-called Human Rights Council has failed to condemn the barbaric atrocities committed by Hamas terrorists against Israel, including the brutal slaughter, torture, kidnapping of thousands of innocent civilians, and Hamas's horrific use of rape and sexual violence against Israeli women and girls, yet disgracefully attacks Israel with unfounded smears. The UN report against Israel comes at a key moment, as Israelis and Jews around the world today celebrate Purim, when many dress up in costumes to mark the holiday. It celebrates the time 2,500 years ago when Haman, a wicked ruler in Persia, which is now modern Iran, plotted to destroy the Jewish people. As recorded in the book of Esther, God raised up a beautiful Jewish queen named Esther to expose and stop those plans. Now, centuries later, Israelis say they again face wicked rulers in Iran who want to destroy Israel and the Jewish people. Today, many Jews and Christians around the world believe God will thwart the plans of today's wicked rulers, just like he did 2,500 years ago. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Chris is here now to continue our coverage. So, Chris, let's begin with Purim. How is it celebrated in Israel?
Well, Ephraim, speaking of Purim, you know, it's hard to miss it right now. People just dress up in costumes. You'll see waiters or waitresses dressed up in costumes, kids on the street, many women and some girls dress up as Queen Esther. They cook snacks called Haman stands. It's like a three-cornered kind of cookie. In synagogues, they also read the Megillah, which is the book of Esther. And when Haman's name is mentioned when they read the book, they either boo or they use noisemakers. They also cheer when Mordecai's name, who is the uncle of Queen Esther, when his name is read. He's one of the heroes of the book. They cheer for him. And many see, as we said in our report, a direct connection between Haman and ancient Persia, who wanted to destroy the Jewish people, and modern-day Iran and its rulers, who have decided and declare over and over, almost on a daily basis, they want to destroy Israel and the Jewish people.
The IDF hit a terror group in Damascus Thursday. What's the story behind this attack?
Well, they struck a headquarters of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad that was planning terror attacks against Israel. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu said they're doing it because they have a clear policy. Whoever is attacking Israel or plans to attack us, they will attack them. That just says a number of attacks throughout Syria, Ephraim, not only against Islamic Jihad, but also against much of the military infrastructure that had been built up by years by either the Assad regime or Iran. They're trying to destroy that. So the new regime, led by a former ISIS member, al-Jawlani, make sure that that doesn't fall into the hands of this new government.
Chris, what's the latest on Islamist groups attacking Alawites and Christians?
Well, this is one of the horror stories right now, Ephraim, here in the Middle East. People have been pursuing, have actually been trying to escape into the mountains there on the western seashore of the Mediterranean inside Syria, but they're being pursued. As they said in a statement, these groups are pursuing elements of the former regime. That includes children, defenseless families who have been fled to these mountains or other places. They've been burning villages, and actually, Ephraim, they've been killing Sunni families. These Islamist groups are Sunni, but they're killing Sunni families that have hidden and protecting Alawites. And so this is, and as we've said before and reported, some of the Alawite and Christian groups, they live together. So many Christians have been killed in this slaughter in the last couple of weeks.
Busy time. What can we expect on today's Jerusalem Dateline?
Well, we have an interview by Gary Lane of the Global Lane program. He's interviewing Alex Trayman, who is the bureau chief here of Jerusalem News Syndicate. And many people are asking the question, why was there an agreement between the leader of northeast Syria and the new regime, al-Jawlani? We have Nadine Maenza, who is really an expert on this and who has visited northeast Syria many times, very familiar with the leaders up there. We have an interview with her trying to explain what's going on. We also have a part of a Gordon Robertson commentary on Mahmoud Khalil. He is the man the Trump administration is trying to deport out of the U.S. because of involvement in fomenting all that violence on the campus of Columbia University in New York City. So we have a very important, I think, insightful Jerusalem Dateline coming up later today.
Look forward to that. Our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell, thank you as always for your insights. Looking forward to hearing more from you in the days ahead. Enjoy your weekend. Back here at home, protests erupted inside Trump Tower as demonstrators from a Jewish group demanded the release of that detained Columbia University activist Mahmoud Khalil, a Palestinian student from Syria. The protests, led by Jewish Voice for Peace, resulted in nearly 100 arrests. CBN's Brody Carter has this story.
The lobby of the Trump Tower filled with chants as over 250 protesters gathered to call for the release of Mahmoud Khalil, a Columbia University graduate student who was arrested by federal immigration authorities.
About 150 protesters in civilian clothes came in the front entrance of Trump Tower, the atrium on 56th Street. Again, this is a public access area.
The demonstrators wore red shirts reading, "Jews say stop arming Israel," and carried banners demanding Khalil's release. Police say they warned the crowd several times before making arrests.
We made 98 arrests. Those arrests are for trespassing, obstructing government administration, and resisting arrest by virtue of us having to carry some of the people out.
Authorities say Khalil, a pro-Palestinian activist and green card holder, was arrested outside his home and is being held in Louisiana. Protesters call his detention political, while the Trump administration says he led an anti-Israel protest coalition at Columbia, violating federal law on foreign nationals endorsing terrorist groups. Jewish Voice for Peace, which critics call an anti-Zionist group, argues his arrest is an attack on free speech.
We are hoping to help spread the word and support the protests that are happening all over the country in support of Mahmoud Khalil, demanding that his unconstitutional abduction be revoked, demanding he is freed, but also calling on people everywhere to speak up now.
Some Democratic politicians have also demanded Khalil's release. The White House suggests more arrests could follow, using an immigration law that gives the Secretary of State the authority to expel foreigners. The Trump administration has pulled over $400 million in federal funding from Columbia, citing the school's failure to combat anti-Semitism. And Columbia said Thursday it has expelled or suspended students for occupying a building last year, revoking some diplomas.
The Trump regime and cronies think that by targeting people who protest for Palestinian freedom and by targeting a Palestinian, that they will divide us. we know that nothing could be further than the truth.
I'm just standing up for my rights, and I'm standing up for Mahmoud Khalil, who has been abducted illegally and taken to an undisclosed location. Does that sound like America to you?
Khalil's case could reach the nation's highest court if his legal team challenges his detention and potential deportation on constitutional grounds. If it does, it could set a legal precedent on whether a lawful U.S. resident can be deported for engaging in activism that the government considers support for a terrorist group. Brody Carter, CBN News.
Coming up, they provide hope and counsel to military warriors, yet these wounded healers need support themselves. See who's reaching them with love and compassion when we come back. You're watching CBN NewsWatch. Military chaplains serve in some of the world's darkest places. They're there to provide spiritual care to our men and women in the armed forces. At times, as you can imagine, chaplains themselves need prayer and encouragement to help them fulfill that mission. CBN's Gary Lane takes us to a gathering in Europe where they shared their challenges and they found support.
Like the troops in their care, many military chaplains experience trauma in military life. Many passionately embrace the unique role of the wounded healer.
As chaplains, we give shoulders for others to put their head on and find peace. We give others assistance in terms of counseling.
Zambian Brigade General Chaplain Henry Matafeo recently joined over 100 military chaplains from Africa and around the world in Brussels, Belgium. Chaplain Matafeo, you traveled a long way from Zambia to attend this conference. Why? What were you hoping to achieve?
We are always on a journey of life, and there are a lot of things that we need to learn and borrow good practice from other people, and just also for fellowship, just to know what the Lord is doing in our lives as chaplains.
It's been a true delight to gather for prayer, for fellowship, for sharing wisdom and insight as to what's happening in their countries and how we can come together for the good of all of our people. And the situations both in our country and across Africa are some of the most challenging situations.
During his first overseas trip as Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth visited U.S. Africa Command, AFRICOM, in Stuttgart, Germany. As an Army combat veteran and Christian, Hegseth is expected to provide strong support to the vital role that chaplains play. AFRICOM Colonel Chaplain Karen Meeker explains.
Our chaplains, they walk fearlessly but humbly and with great compassion to provide comfort and encouragement to our service members in the most difficult of situations, when there's death, when there's casualties.
African chaplains attending the Brussels conference shared many of their experiences. Some work in areas overwhelmed by violent extremism, such as Nigeria and Somalia. Others provide care to those suffering from drought in countries like Ethiopia and Malawi. Additionally, some chaplains serve in war zones, including Sudan and Congo. The people of Congo have endured war and violence for decades, with over 100 armed militia groups fighting to control the country and its valuable mineral wealth. Colonel Meeker recounts her conversation with one Congolese chaplain.
When we were sharing prayer concerns, he had tears in his eyes as he asked that we would pray for him and the Congo that has been at war for 35 years. So those are the realities of what all our chaplains face, both in the United States and our friends and partners around the world.
AFRICOM has partnered with Zambia to establish a chaplain school of excellence, which will be available to individuals from 14 countries in southern Africa. While Zambia is predominantly Christian, Chaplain Matafeo emphasizes that his role is to promote Christian values, such as honesty, integrity, respect, gratitude, charity, and kindness, a mission that extends beyond the military.
When people embrace these core values, then we are going to have a society where possibly from a spiritual point of view, one doesn't need a policeman to have a conscience of what they are doing, but that they will be able to police themselves because they know who they are in the Lord and the responsibility that they have to God and as well as the nation.
As the U.S. government closely examines its overseas spending, Meeker believes that generous Christians partnering with churches and chaplains in Africa can create significant impact.
To take care of those, our brothers and sisters, wherever they may be across our nation and around the world.
Demonstrating the love of Christ through care, compassion, and friendship. Gary Lane, CBN News.
Still ahead, investigating the supernatural, CBN Documentaries explores miracles across America. Stay with us. You're watching CBN NewsWatch. Welcome back to CBN NewsWatch. We're back to explore a couple of unique questions. Do you believe in miracles? Do they happen today? The answers may be answered in the new CBN documentary investigating the supernatural. Journalist Billy Hallowell traveled across America for an in-depth look at miracles, and he joins us now. So what sparked this investigation?
Yeah, I think I always love these topics that are a little tougher to deal with. They're things that are in the church, but there's debate around them. Do miracles still happen? Have they ceased? And this is a huge debate in the church right now, and even outside of the church, skeptics who don't believe these things. So we wanted to dive in, we wanted to look at it, and not just look at benign cases that were maybe miracles, but really look at ironclad cases, try to poke holes in them, see what we could find, and then present the results.
Take us inside the investigation. Where did it take you?
Oh gosh, we went everywhere. We were in Florida. We have been all over the country. We've been to California, Indiana, New Jersey. And each of these stories, you're not going to encounter 20 different stories. You're going to get 3 to 4 very solid stories that we go in depth on. And these stories, I really think will rock people to their core, even as a Christian going into it. As a journalist and a Christian, wanting to always be a skeptic, but believing in miracles, saying, are these people going to be able to prove this to me? And I left very convicted on a number of levels about my own faith and the level of what I was willing to accept, but really powerful stories.
If you could, give us a preview. Take us inside a story that stands out. Maybe it's one we're going to see, or maybe it's one that didn't make the cut.
So this is one you're going to see, and it is a man who was a police officer. He fell on the ice, just a random accident, broke his neck, ended up paralyzed on half of his body. And that paralysis and a subsequent surgery left him in a situation where he had a migraine for years that never let up. Miserable existence, struggling, not able to play with his daughter, even hold his daughter. And he's confined to this leg brace. And he went from prayer event to prayer event to prayer event and was not getting healing until this one prayer event that he and his wife, and he was sort of like, I don't want anybody praying over me, I'm done. And the wife says, no, let's go to this one last event. And it's captured, we have the actual footage and we have the interviews with him and his wife, but this event left him completely healed to the point where we were able to interview him, talk with him. He's out of the leg brace. He walked out of that prayer event after being paralyzed for 10 years.
Wow. Is there a message or thought you are hoping people take away from watching this journey with you?
There are so many. I think the big thing is whether you're an atheist, an agnostic, or a Christian, I think this film has something for you. I think for the atheists and the agnostics, they're sort of left with, well, what's the explanation? I mean, a brain tumor disappearing, somebody coming back from the dead after 40 minutes. I mean, these are the stories you'll see in this. You have to explain that somehow, right? There has to be an explanation when these are medically documented. So I think for the atheists, it's sort of that challenge to the worldview. I think for Christians, depending on where you are on miracles, lots of messages there, faith-sustaining messages for those who do believe in miracles, that there is proof, and you will see that in this documentary. And for those who aren't sure they still exist, I think seeing incredible things happen, that God is still moving in these amazing ways.
How did this project change or challenge you?
Oh boy. Okay, so I went into this believing in miracles, right? Because I'm a Christian. I mean, I believe what the scriptures say, and you can hardly read the New Testament without hitting a miracle story. And yet, I also hadn't seen a lot of miracles up close, radical miracles, right? And so I went into this feeling like, okay, if I face a dire diagnosis, would I have the same faith that these people had to keep going year after year? I mean, this went on for years. They didn't get immediate healings, these people. Or would I give up? And the convicting thing is, I think before this, I might have given up. I might not have had that persistence. So this actually taught me a new level of trust in God, that no matter what happens, you're not always going to get the miracle, right? That I can trust him, but also the persistence I think these people had was so deeply inspiring.
I love that. Where can people get to see it?
It's really easy. CBN.com/supernatural. They can go and they can stream it, or they can get a DVD there.
All right, thank you so much. Much appreciated. Stay with us. There's much more CBN NewsWatch coming up right after this. Time now for your Friday Faithful, and today I leave you with this thought. In God, there is no failure. All circumstances are a lesson or a blessing. So embrace them and take comfort knowing God is always working on your behalf, and absolutely nothing is wasted. With that word, I encourage you to make this a fabulous Friday, and be sure to have yourself a wonderful weekend as well. That will do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. You can always find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel. You can find them there at any time as well as online. That address is cbnnews.com. Take a moment, let us know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can do that by emailing us, newswatch@cbn.com. You can also reach out and touch us on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. We look forward to seeing you right back here, same time come Monday. Goodbye, God bless, and thank you so much for watching.